Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over the market on a pretty brutal way to end off the week and almost the month. We have one more day in the month left, of course. Today is not the last day of the month. It is, of course, going to be on Monday, the 31st of March. So that'll be the final day. And obviously next week, I mean, just for the whole market as a whole, we do have April 2nd. We have Trump's, tariff day, essentially. We'll see what that ends up being, right? Is this a sell the rumor, buy the news event, or is this a sell both event? Honestly, with this kind of market, sometimes you never know, right? Let's see. But that is going to be, in my opinion, potentially a massive day, for the market, right? A pivot potentially, right? Let's see if the market is maybe just kind of anxious going into it and potentially looking to be less anxious now that that supposed uncertainty is out of the way, because that should be the tariff day. So anyways, let's just jump into it. If you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc., I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market is open, as the market is trading. The link is down below. For just $3 a month, you get access to my thoughts, posts, updates, mainly on Tesla stocks, sometimes other stocks as well. Or $5 a month gives you access to NVDA included on top of the first tier. But yeah, jumping into it, Tesla closing the day down. I'm gonna say only 3.5%, only because I actually think it held up okay. Honestly, it held up pretty all right, at least relative to the market, right? QQQ down 2.63%. So Tesla, relative to the market, yeah, not too bad. It could have been worse. I'll tell you that right now. It could have been worse. And more importantly, it actually held at a pretty important level, at least in my eyes, which was about that low 260s. I mean, it's, not hanging on very convincingly, but it's hanging on nonetheless. So let's start off with, I guess, the daily chart. I mean, the daily chart is not, it's not that much to say, honestly, for the daily chart. Nice little push up over here, right? I mean, MACD is still looking good. RSI is looking fine. Nothing really concerning, I would say. Nothing really overwhelmingly bullish. I mean, other than the fact that the MACD is quite literally green, but nothing really bearishly concerning either on the daily, right? One thing, obviously we'll point out on the daily is the fact that we held this, support area right here that I did want to hold, and we're roughly holding around that 8 exponential moving average. So there's still work to be done for the bulls. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe it's looking pretty good. Now, obviously, Tesla also has the delivery numbers coming out on Wednesday, so that I'm pretty sure it's Wednesday. Almost positive it's Wednesday. So that plus Trump's tariff day, Wednesday could be a spicy one for Tesla stock. There's no doubt about that one. That could be a spicy one. So let's see how that actually ends up going. But overall, the daily is not really giving me too much information, right? Going a little bit smaller time frames is where, we'll get a little bit more information here, such as, for instance, even just the 4-hour chart. Right now, the 4-hour chart is looking interesting, right? It's looking interesting. You have the MACD still flip bullish, right? It's kind of cooling off a little bit here, which is fine. But you can easily make an argument the fact that Tesla is in this kind of, 4-hour, if you will, bull flag type scenario setting up over here, right? So let's see how that actually plays out. I do like the fact that we ended up holding this level over here, which obviously was a massive area of, well, I wouldn't say massive, but it was an area of support that we ended up holding. And now we're once again holding that general vicinity. If we lose 260, pretty much 260 really, then that can potentially bleed us all the way back down to about this retest right here, which would be closer to like the low 250s. I ideally would prefer we didn't do that. I think the structure would look a lot more bullish personally if we don't do that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now. I'm looking for Tesla not to do that. The ideal scenario for me is that pretty much right around here, this 260-ish area, we end up getting that bounce and ultimately break out of this trend line on the 4-hour chart on Tesla stock, and essentially bring it, rather break above about 200 and very low 270s, we'll say. And that would be a breakout of this little bull flag that it's in right now. And that could be, good news. And that's where, Tesla, if it actually gets this breakout, can definitely make its way back up, to the very low 300s, right? Which on the daily chart, we have the 50 exponential moving average sitting in, again, also in the very low 300s. And, it wouldn't surprise me to get a move up there. I don't know, maybe after delivery numbers. I don't know how long it'll take, but even just that alone will be almost a 14% move, which is not too shabby, at least from today's closing price, assuming this, of course, plays out in such a fashion. Now, on the flip side, if the bulls, don't step in and, it starts looking questionable, market continues selling off aggressively, whatever the case may be, let's just say, yeah, it's just, we take a more bearish path, right? Again, the first step will be losing 260. If we start losing 260 and especially start closing candles below 260, okay, not great, right? That would essentially open up a move back down to about this gap fill over here and retest of this 250 region. That'll be the first level I'll be, absolutely looking for. But if we also lose 250, so if we lose 260 and we lose 250, because like even if we lose 260, it's not ideal, but we can still come down here and get a still a bullish setup. It will just be not as bullish in my opinion, but still bullish. However, if we start losing 250s and we start closing below 250s, that would be much more concerning. That's where I would be much more concerned on the stock and really starting to question the bullish momentum that is supposed to exist, at least as of right now, right? That would really start putting those things into question, in my opinion, of course, right? So let's see how that plays out. But in my opinion, again, I would much prefer to hold 260. That would be the ideal scenario. 250, still okay, not as ideal, but still bullish. But again, losing 250, that is a red flag. That is going to be an absolute, red flag. So let's see how that plays out. Also, if we take the Fibonacci's from this recent swing low, you can even go from down here, but I mean, ultimately it kind of gives you the same idea, whether you go from here or whether you go from here. Even if you go from here, let's say, right, this overall massive swing low that we had, the true swing low, you can take a look that we're pretty much dancing right around that 382 Fibonacci level, and you can even see how the 0.5 level is sitting in the 255s, or if you take it from this slightly higher swing low over here instead, you can also see it's very similar levels, but we also have that 618 Fibonacci sitting at pretty much 250 almost on the dot. So that's why this area right here should in theory be a pretty strong area for bulls, at least in my opinion. I like the fact that, and the reason I'm using the Fibonacci's in such a fashion is because, well, you can argue that Tesla did make a fresh higher high, right? Because it's been pretty much making lower lows, lower highs on the shorter time frames, right? Until eventually it made this higher low and then eventually finally pushed up with this higher high. And now arguably coming down to print what should be, in theory, of course, a higher low, which is why I use the Fibonacci, which should also, in theory, push up for, at the very least, in my opinion, one more push up higher into about the low 300s. Best case scenario will be closer to about the 320s roughly, right? So that's kind of what my current expectations are of Tesla moving forward for the next, again, I don't know how long it'll take, a few days, maybe a few weeks. I don't know how long this will take, right? That's the thing. It's very important. It's pretty much impossible to determine the duration of it, right? That's probably my main way of looking at Tesla right now moving forward. The 1 hour chart, taking a quick peek at the 1 hour chart as well. We are starting to dance below the 50 exponential moving average on the 1 hour chart. That doesn't usually mean that much, right? I mean, even had like NVDA over here, do it up here and, below it, then it still popped up. Then when below it again, it still popped up, right? So it doesn't fully mean that much that it's below the 50 exponential moving average. But if we don't get a pop relatively soon, ideally Monday, but, pretty soon, like early next week, this would start risking these exponential moving averages to cross back under the 50, which is not what I want to see. I don't want to see the 8 and the 21 cross under the 50, because that would put more question marks into the stock's bullish, quote unquote, bullish momentum, and whether or not it's really still there, right? So I definitely want to see the bulls step in sooner than later, really early next week on this stock, and really start to get a push up on the stock moving forward. So that'll be something I'll be looking for as well moving forward on Tesla. So that's kind of the main way I'm looking at it right now. Take a look at the weekly, of course, where the weekly has officially closed. Not the sexiest looking weekly candle, I'll be completely honest, right? It's almost like the opposite of these two in a sense. So it's just showing that there's a lot of selling pressure here, but a lot of buying pressure here. So it's like a tug of war right now as we await maybe delivery numbers and tariff news, right? That could be what she's kind of waiting for here essentially. But one potential positive sign is the fact that the MACD had its first higher low close on the histogram, right? So that's a good sign. First higher low on the histogram ever since this very aggressive downtrend has begun all the way back up here since pretty much $400 per share. It's been making lower lows on the histogram every single week until this week. So that's the first step to recovery, we can say. But that's something else to watch for moving forward. But you can see we pretty much rejected right at the exponential moving averages right here, almost to perfection. So that is going to be a level for the bulls to want to really start to break out and above. The sooner the better, ultimately, really. I mean, the sooner the better, right? This isn't a level to reclaim for the bulls, which again, pretty much sits at the moment, at the very least in the high 200s, like 290s and change, if you will, at the very least, ideally back into 300s. So that's what the bulls want to do, right? The bears, what they want to do is, well, obviously bring this well back down. And honestly, the bears just want to lose 250. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on the weekly is the fact that, am I tripping? Is the fact that we close above the trend line. This is interesting. Like, it's not a convincing close above the trend line, but this trend line on the weekly, right? This kind of channel, I should say. Let's people in the hallway. This massive channel that we are in on the weekly. I don't know if you guys hear them. They're like laughing really loudly in the hallway. we closed back above it. The point is we closed back above this trend line. Again, not the most convincing close back above it, but back above it nonetheless, right? We had 2 weekly closures down below it 2 times in a row, or 2 weeks in a row, I should say. And now we're back within this, technically, in this massive rising channel. So this could result in a very large false breakdown if we continue showing essentially buying pressure, honestly, next week, right? Pretty much next week. Like, I don't want to have next week drop and especially close pretty much below this week's close and especially this week's low. So those are the other levels to watch for. So there's a lot of, question marks here for sure for Tesla stock. There's a lot of things that, need to be done. And essentially it really just comes down to the bulls, they need to start stepping in, and let's see how that plays out. Now, looking at options flow, pretty much as the market closed towards the very end of the day, like actually technically past the end of the day, a lot of calls came in on SPY, 1.9 SPX, I should say, 1.9 million, 3.8 million, 1.1 million, 5.4 million. So that's pretty interesting. That's a substantial amount of calls that came in on SPY or SPX. And they're not that far out, right? Some of them are only a month out. Some of them are only a few months out, right? So that's pretty interesting that came in towards the end of the day like that. And taking a look at Tesla's actual options flow throughout the day, you can see here, definitely more bearish than bullish, right? But towards the end of the day, some bullish flow also on Tesla came in, which is a nice sign to see. And then finally, looking at confirmed bullish or bearish flow, Tesla is going to be all the way down here, only at 8 million confirmed bearish flow. Nothing too crazy. So, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, next week should be another spicy week, as if, it just feels like you cannot catch a break. Every single week feels like there's just something pretty crazy in store. Next week, we have the delivery numbers and, of course, Mr. Orange Man's tariff day. He used a word for it. There's a word he used to describe that day. I forgot what it was. But anyways, that's all I got for you. Let me know what you think down below. I'll see you tomorrow or Monday. Peace.